Hello and welcome to NDTV 24/7. I'm Rohit Wellington. Let's begin with our top story. Prime Minister Modi has called a meeting with all chief ministers to discuss the rising cases of coronavirus in many states. The virtual interactions that interaction will take place on Wednesday. That's what sources have said. Now, on Monday, India witnessed a surge of over 26,000 cases in the country, the highest this year. So, Prime Minister will be holding a meeting at 12:30 p.m. on Wednesday with all the chief ministers on rising COVID cases. Now, the big worry state is the state of Maharashtra, and now new restrictions have been imposed in the state. 50% capacity in restaurants and movie halls, no social, political, religious gatherings. Guests at weddings have been capped at 50. Let's go across to Sukirti Dwivedi for more on this. Sukirti, how concerned is the centre about the rising cases, particularly in Maharashtra?
Well, the centre has been very concerned, and this is something even the head of the Vaccine Administration Committee as well as the NITI Aayog member Dr. V.K. Paul had recently said when he had started talking about the kind of lockdowns that Maharashtra is witnessing. He said that we are going to a situation where we have started it all. So definitely for the centre it is a big concern. This is the time when India was expected to move ahead in its battle with pandemic. Unfortunately, we seem to be at a phase where we seem to be starting all over again, especially in Maharashtra, where Nagpur recently has implemented its lockdown, and now these new restrictions that you mentioned with 50% capacity in restaurants and movie halls. So those restrictions have come in. Maharashtra definitely in terms of COVID cases had been seeing a rise of over 15,000 cases. Today it saw a rise of over 16,000 cases. So the kind of lockdowns that have been implemented in a few areas of Maharashtra looks like, those measures may become more extreme in the upcoming days, considering the way more and more restrictions are being imposed. If the cases do not come down, that is something that the state government would have to resort to, and that's something even Mr. Uddhav Thackeray had warned against. He had said that if people do not wear their masks, if they do not follow social distancing, then you will compel us to enforce a lockdown, and that's something you shouldn't want to happen.
All right, Sukirti Dwivedi, thanks very much for joining us with those details. Political news now. There were huge protests outside BJP office in Kolkata on Monday as the party announced its second list of candidates. There were dramatic scenes as hundreds of people gathered outside the BJP office in Bengal's capital. Sources said that some of the protesters were from Panchla in Howrah. The mob even heckled senior leaders Mukul Roy, Arjun Singh and Shiv Prakash. Now there is trouble for BJP even in other districts over candidates. Let's go across to Munideepa Banerjee for more on this. Munideepa, what is the latest you're hearing?
Well, on the whole protest in front of the BJP office, let me tell you that we are hearing that even now the protests are continuing late into the night. Those are the reports I'm just getting in, because through the day there have been protesters, gathering outside that building. This is something called an Agarwal building in the Hastings area, and that is the election office of the BJP, and that's where protesters got in there. They tried to force their way into the building. The police were called in. They put up iron barricades, but protesters were not to be stopped. They pulled the barricades down, and it was with great difficulty that the police and the security people in charge over there managed to prevent them from breaking and entering the building. And then when Mr. Arjun Singh, the MP, Mr. Mukul Roy, senior leader, and Mr. Shiv Prakash, extremely senior leader of the BJP, when they tried to emerge from the building, they were, unsparingly heckled by these workers. What is the problem? What are the BJP supporters protesting? Basically, it seems they are upset with the candidates that have been announced for the third and fourth phase of voting. And that's because the candidates are all ex-Trinamool persons. People who have recently migrated from Trinamool Congress have been given the tickets, and that is where the BJP supporters feel that injustice has been done to them. And this is exactly why, not just outside the BJP office in Kolkata, but offices in Hooghly district are being ransacked as we speak. At Shingur, there was trouble yesterday, today, all day, and last in the evening, protesters just ransacked the office. Also at Chinsura. Now, both these seats are very interesting and very important that there is so much BJP anger, because at Shingur, the candidate nominated is a former Trinamool MLA from Shingur. That gentleman, Rabindranath Bhattacharya, was nominated again by the BJP, and this has led to an outrage by local BJP workers who say all these days Rabindranath Bhattacharya had been attacking the BJP. He is the man behind the whole Tata Nano movement against the Tata Nano factory. He's the one who chased literally the Tatas out of Shingur, and now BJP wants to nominate him. Right. And in Chinsura, it's even more, worrisome for the BJP, because in Chinsura, the candidate is the BJP MP, Locket Chatterjee, and she's the candidate in Chinsura, and her office, the BJP office in Chinsura, the district office, has been vandalized by BJP supporters.
All right, Monideepa Banerjee, we leave it there. Thanks very much for joining us with those details. Meanwhile, it was Mamata Banerjee versus Amit Shah in West Bengal on Monday. Here's the report.
Mamata Banerjee and Amit Shah were set to dominate headlines today with their twin rallies. But Shubhendu Adhikari stole a march. He demanded Mamata Banerjee's candidature for Nandigram be cancelled for allegedly suppressing information. He wrote to the EC about 5 FIRs pending against her in Assam for alleged comments on NRC and one in Kolkata by CBI.
মাননীয় নন্দীগ্রাম থেকে নমিনেশন করেছেন, আমি আজকে অবজেকশন করেছি। 6টা মামলা আছে দেয়নি তাতে। 6টা মামলা সাপ্রেস অফ ফ্যাক্ট। 18 সালে 5টা আসামে মামলা হয়েছিল দেয়নি, আর একটা সিবিআই এর কাছে মামলা পেন্ডিং আছে সেটা দেয়নি। আমি আজকে কমপ্লেইন করেছি।
Trinamool dismissed it as a stunt by someone set to lose his deposit at Nandigram.
If he has any complaint, let him complain to the Election Commission now. But the Election Commission at this stage cannot cancel any nomination paper.
Earlier, on schedule, Mamata Banerjee's wheelchair rolled out against the BJP juggernaut. She spoke at 2 rallies in Purulia. Amit Shah spoke via video at Jhargram, in person at Khatra. Predictably, the big fight was about her injury.
আমার পায়ে চোট লাগার ফলে কিন্তু আমি নির্বাচনের সময় আমি মনে করি আমার শরীরে যন্ত্রণা আছে, কিন্তু আমার যন্ত্রণার থেকেও সাধারণ মানুষের যন্ত্রণা অনেক বেশি।
मूलवार कांग्रेस वाले कहते हैं कि बड़ा षड्यंत्र हो गया और चोट करा दी। चुनाव आयोग कहता है हमला नहीं हुआ है, हादसा हुआ है।
Her nephew joined battle, mocking Shah for skipping his first rally because the turnout was apparently so poor. Shah said his helicopter had a snag.
কিন্তু সবার যা ছবি আমার কাছে এসছে, ভারতীয় জনতা পার্টির সর্বভারতীয় নেতারা সভায় আসছে, যা ভিড় হচ্ছে এর থেকে গ্রামে জেসিবি কাটায় লোকের বেশি ভিড় হয় দেখতে গিয়ে। চায়ের দোকানে সকালে আড্ডা দিতে লোক বেশি পাওয়া যায়।
आज मेरे हेलीकॉप्टर में खराबी आ गई, मगर मैं ऐसा नहीं कहूंगा कि ये षड्यंत्र है।
The vitriol is rising in the Bengal polls. Knives are out between and within rival parties. On top of it, if there is any merit in Shubhendu Adhikari's charge against Mamata Banerjee, then the blockbuster Bengal poll may just turn Titanic. With G.D. Shankar, Monideepa Banerjee, NDTV.
With 4 chief ministerial aspirants in Tamil Nadu, the political temperature on Monday touched a new high, with all of them filing their nominations, including Chief Minister EPS, his challenger MK Stalin, and new players like Kamal Hassan and TTV Dinakaran. The poll promises too are of a new kind in the state, from washing machines to free gas cylinders to data cards to salary for housewives. Sam Daniel sent us this report.
The 4 stalwarts of Tamil Nadu all officially in the race now. Chief Minister EPS filing his nomination at his home turf Idapadi for a 5th term. Aiming for a 3rd consecutive term, the ruling AIADMK has promised 1,500 rupees for housewives every month, 6 LPG cylinders free every year, and free data card for students.
பாதுகாக்கக்கூடிய அரசு அம்மாவுடைய அரசு. அதன் வழியிலே அந்த சிறுபான்மை மக்கள் கோரிக்கை வைத்திருக்கிறார். அந்த கோரிக்கையை எங்களுடைய அரசு மத்தியிலே வலியுறுத்தும்.
In Chennai's Kolattur, DMK chief MK Stalin is looking for a 3rd term after being out of power for 10 years. DMK has promised a monthly 1,000 rupees for housewives, a 5 rupee cut in petrol prices and a 4 rupee cut in diesel prices. The DMK Congress alliance hopes to continue its 2019 sweep of Lok Sabha polls.
பிரச்சனை எடுத்துக்கிட்டிங்கன்னா அதே மாதிரி விவசாயிகள் பிரச்சனை இதெல்லாம் மத்திய அரசுக்கு ஜாலரா போட்டுக்கிட்டு இருக்கு இந்த அரசு. இதெல்லாம் நம்ம நிச்சயம் முன்னேற்போம். அதனால் நீங்கள் நினைக்கிற மாதிரி இந்த ஆட்சி மேலே எந்த விதமான துரியளவு கூட நம்பிக்கை கிடையாது மக்களிடத்தில்.
MNM chief Kamal Hassan, who has chosen Coimbatore for his electoral debut, will lock horns with 2 national parties, BJP and Congress. It was MNM that first mooted the idea of salary for housewives, besides 50 lakh jobs, a corruption-free government, free computers with internet for all homes.
This is a battle between decency and indecency. This is a battle between honesty and corruption. So people will have to now take sides. People will have to endorse those who are trying to do something different.
AMMK chief Dinakaran is shifting base from Jayalalitha's RK Nagar in Chennai to Kovilpatti down south. Following his party's rout in 2019, he has roped in actor Vijaykanth's DMDK and Ovaizi's AIMIM. It's a fascinating first state election in Tamil Nadu after the passing of 2 tall leaders, Jayalalitha and Karunanidhi. While it's an acid test for the leadership of the 2 Dravidian arch-rivals, new players like Kamal Hassan and others too hope the state would give them a chance to rule. In Chennai with Suresh, Sam Daniel, for NDTV.
In some other news, key banking operations across the country were impacted on Monday as 9 unions called for a 2-day nationwide strike against the proposed privatization of public sector banks and what they call retrograde banking reforms. As many as 10 lakh bank employees are participating in this strike. Services like deposits and withdrawals at branches, check clearance and loan approvals are likely to be affected during this strike. ATMs are likely to be functional across the country. Meghalaya Governor Satyapal Malik was in Bagpat in western UP on Sunday and spoke in favor of the farmers protesting against the controversial farm laws. Here's a report.
कोई कानून उनके पक्ष में लागू नहीं है आज की तारीख में, तो इसको सेटल करना चाहिए. और अगर जिस देश का किसान और जवान ये डिससेटिस्फाइड होगा, वो देश सर्वाइव कर ही नहीं सकता.
Former Governor of Jammu and Kashmir and the present Governor of Meghalaya, Mr. Satyapal Malik, announcing his surprising position in favor of the farmers. Though Malik occupies a constitutional chair that has never stopped him from making political comments, particularly those favoring the centre. This is the first time in recent memory where Malik has not just criticized but taken a binary opposite position than the centre on farm laws.
आपको यकीन दिलाता हूं कि किसानों वाले मामले में जितनी दूर तक जाना पड़ेगा मैं उतनी दूर तक जाऊंगा. जो कर सकता हूं वो करूंगा.
His statements have confused, even pleasantly surprised many.
मुझे लगता है कि जो बातें उन्होंने बोली हैं, इससे स्पष्ट होता है कि अंदर भी बीजेपी के अंदर भी एक द्वंद्व है. वो एक कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल पोस्ट पे हैं, राज्यपाल के तौर पे बात कह रहे हैं, लेकिन बीजेपी के अंदर भी बहुत सारे ऐसे सांसद हैं जो सतपाल मलिक जी की बात से सहमत हैं.
सरकार से ही Another MP from the poll-bound state of Uttar Pradesh to speak, Danish Ali of the BSP.
ये पहली बार इस देश में हो रहा है कि एक संवैधानिक पद पर बैठा हुआ व्यक्ति सरकार से ही गुहार लगा रहा है कि ये काले कानून वापस लें, और उन्होंने चेतावनी भी दी है कि किसान अपने ऊपर हुए अत्याचारों को 300 साल तक नहीं भूलता है।
Satyapal Malik hails from western UP's Baghpat. This is the area where the BJP saw a massive gain in its political fortunes in 2014 and in 2017 Vidhan Sabha, and then again in 2019 Lok Sabha elections. But the impact of the farmers' agitation has been such that not just in Punjab and Haryana, the BJP is facing the heat in western UP as well. This is the result of the farm law impasse and a farmers' leader Rakesh Tiket's tears. Farmers in these parts are regularly seen organizing Mahapanchayats, even joined in by the opposition RLD, Congress, SP and BSP. Sources in the BJP dismiss Mr. Malik's comments as his own, maintaining that the protests are politically motivated and that people are convinced that laws are pro-farmer. Malik's comments may have been dismissed, but the big challenge for the BJP will be to convince a large section of voters of Western UP ahead of 2022 Vidhan Sabha, something which doesn't seem to be happening successfully on the ground, at least as of now. Bureau Report, NDTV.
The CBI has registered against 17 army officials, 6 private persons and others a complaint on allegations pertaining to bribery and irregularities in recruitment of officers and other ranks through Service Selection Board. Let's go across to Arvind Kunaseka for more on this. Arvind, what more details can you share with us?
Rohit, the Central Bureau of Investigation, taking cognizance of the Indian Army's complaint, has registered a case against 17 officers of Indian Army and also 6 private persons for alleged irregularities in the selection, in the recruitment of officers through SSB. So this complaint was sent by the Indian Army headquarters, Ministry of Defence, to the Central Bureau of Investigation in the first week of March. The Central Bureau of Investigation, after preliminary investigation, has come to a prima facie conclusion that there seems to be a prima facie offence here, and that's why the agency has registered a case. That this particular FIR also named 6 lieutenant colonel officers, rank officers, also as accused in this case. So the agency, after registering the FIR, today conducted searches at around 30 locations across the country that includes 7 states and 13 cities. What we are being told is that the agency has seized some incriminating documents and materials showing that there has been a nexus between these alleged officers and also the private persons for monetary gains, whereby the rules were floated and there seems to be a huge irregularities in the selection of officers through SSB. So the investigation is currently underway. Very soon the agency will be issuing notices to all these accused, and then the investigation will be taken forward. Okay.
Welcome back. Foreign Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar on Monday said in Parliament that India can never ever turn its eyes away from racism after a BJP leader raised the topic of an Indian student who resigned as the president of the Oxford University Students' Union last month after controversy over some of her past remarks.
As the land of Mahatma Gandhi, we can never ever turn our eyes away from racism wherever it is, particularly so when it is in a country where we have such a large diaspora.
These remarks from the Foreign Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar in Parliament today after a BJP leader raised the issue of Rashmi Samant, the first Indian woman to be elected president of Oxford University Students' Union, but had to resign soon after controversy over some of her past remarks, which were seen as racist and insensitive. He also brought up Prince Harry's wife Meghan Markle's allegations of racism by UK royals.
Shouldn't this diversity have been celebrated? Instead of that, she was cyber-bullied to the point that she had to resign. Even the Hindu religious beliefs of her parents were publicly attacked by a faculty member, and that also went unpunished.
The External Affairs Minister was quick to respond.
Friend of the UK, we also have concerns about its reputational impact. What I do want to say, sir, is that we have strong ties with the UK. We will take up such matters with great candor when required. We will always champion the fight against racism and other forms of intolerance.
The developments came a week after the Indian government condemned a debate in the UK Parliament over farmers' protests in India and called it one-sided and based on false assertions.
The issue of lack of access to healthcare for migrants was also raised in the parliament as the BJP leader cited a recent report by Public Health England which states that the death rate due to COVID-19 among people of Asian origin is higher than the death rate for other communities in the UK. In New Delhi with camera person Shashikant Shah, this is Sukirti Dwivedi for NDTV.